HPT Science College, Department of Zoology, TY.B.Sc, Zoology, Environmental Biology and Toxicology, course number ZY334, paper 4. Presenter Dr. Javre CS. First we'll see detailed syllabus structure. This course is divided into total 8 chapters. First chapter is environmental biology, its introduction, definition and basic concepts and scope. Second chapter is ecosystem, where definition of ecosystem, biotic, abiotic components and their interrelationship is studied. And second is the energy flow in ecosystem and flow model is studied. Then major ecosystem, natural ecosystem like freshwater, forest, artificial ecosystem and cropland is studied. And then food chain in ecosystem and food web and ecological pyramids. In third chapter, environmental pollution, definition and types of pollution, pollutants, types of pollutants like metallic, gaseous, acids, alkali, biocides, and air pollution, definition, source of air pollution and their effect is studied. Air pollution, its relevance with the following like acid rain, greenhouse effect, ozone layer depletions. Then water pollution, its definition, source of water pollution, their effect on ecosystem, specifically community waste with reference to sewage, industrial waste, agriculture waste. Then land and soil pollution, its definition, source of land or soil pollution and their effect. Then noise pollution, definition, source of noise pollution, their effect and control measures. Fourth chapters deal with the environment and development. Here bioindicators and environmental monitoring, environmental challenges in India, land degradation, population explosion, urbanization and industrialization. Fifth chapter deal with the natural resources and conservation. Renewable and non-renewable resources, soil conservation, forest conservation, energy sources, conventional and non-conventional. And wildlife management is the sixth chapter, where definition of wildlife management, causes of wildlife depletions, importance of wildlife management in India, endangered species, vulnerable species, rare species and threatened species, and wildlife conservation issues. Seventh chapter is toxicant and toxicity, where definition of toxicology, scope and branches, types of toxicant, factors influencing toxicity like pH, temperature, reproductive status, age, physiological state is discussed. Then dose, LD15, LC50 concepts are discussed. Pesticides, heavy metals, fertilizer, food additives and radioactive substance, public health hazards are discussed in this chapter. TY.B.Sc Zoology, Environmental Biology, paper number 4, Chapter 1, Environmental Biology, Definition, Scope and Importance. The science of environmental biology is a multidisciplinary science because it consists various branches of studies like chemistry, physics, medical science, life science, agriculture, public health, sanitary engineering, etc. It is a science of physical phenomena in environment. It includes study of sources, reaction, transport, effect and fate of physical entity as well as biological species in air, water, soil and its effect on human activity. Literally, environment means the surrounding external conditions influencing development or growth of people, animal or plants, living or working conditions of them. This involves three basic questions. What is surrounded? The answer to this question is living object in general and man in particular. Another question is what is surrounded? The physical attributes are the answer to these questions which become environment. In fact, the concern of all education is the environment of man. However, man cannot exist or be understood in isolation from the other form of life and from plant life. Hence, environment refers to the sum total of conditions which surrounds points in space and time. The scope of the term environment has been changed and widening by the passage of time. In the primitive age, the environment consisted of only physical aspect of planted earth, land, air and water as biological communities. As the time passed on, man extended his environment through his social, economical and political functions. Third question is where surrounded? The answer to this question, it is in nature that physical component of the plant earth like land, air, water, etc. support and affect life in the biosphere. According to some scientists, environment is the representative of physical component of the earth wherein man is an important factor affecting the environment. Definitions of environment. Here we'll see two different definitions of environment. In one, a person's environment consists of the sum total of the stimulations which he receives from his conceptions till his death. It can be concluded from this definition that environment comprises various types of forces such as physical, intellectual, economic, political, cultural, social, moral, and emotional. Environment is the sum total of all the external forces, influences, and conditions which affect the life, nature, behavior, and the growth, development, and maturation of living organisms. Another definition is the term environment is used to describe in the aggregate all the external forces, influences and conditions which affect the life, nature, behavior and the growth, development and maturity of living organisms. Scope of environments involve four segments as atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere and biosphere. In this, atmosphere implies the protective blanket of gases surrounding the earth. It sustains life on the earth. It saves it from the hostile environment of outer space. It absorbs most of the cosmic rays from outer space and a major portion of the electromagnetic radiations from the sun. It transmits only here ultraviolet, visible, near-infrared radiations and radio waves, while filtering out tissue-damaging ultraviolet waves below about 300 nm. This atmosphere is composed of nitrogen, oxygen beside argon, carbon dioxide and trace gases. Second one is a hydrosphere. It comprises all types of water resources, ocean, sea, lake, rivers, streams, reservoirs, polar ice caps, glaciers and groundwater. In nature, 97% of the Earth's water supply is in the ocean. About 2% of the water resources is locked in the polar ice cap and glaciers. Only about 1% is available as fresh surface water reservoir, lake, streams and groundwater fit to be used for human consumption and other uses. Third one is a lithosphere. It is the outer mantle of solid earth. It consists of minerals occurring in earth crust and soil. For example, minerals, organic matters, air and water. Fourth one is a biosphere that indicates the realm of living organisms and their interactions with environment like atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere. Now we'll see different elements of environment. Environment is formed by interacting systems of physical, biological and cultural elements interrelated in various ways. Individually as well as physical elements are as space, landform, water bodies, climate, soil, rock and minerals. They determine the variable characters of human habitat, its opportunities as well as limitations. Biological elements such as plants, animal, microorganisms and men constitute the biosphere. Cultural elements such as economic, social, political elements are essentially man-made features which make cultural environment. Importance of environmental studies. The environmental studies enlighten us about the importance of protection and conservation of our indiscriminate release of pollution into the environment. At present, a great number of environment issues have grown in size and complexity day by day, threatening the survival of mankind on Earth. We study about these issues beside and effective suggestions in the environmental studies. Environment studies have become significant for the following reason, as one of that reason is environment issues being of international importance. It has been well recognized that environment issues like global warming and ozone depletion, acid rain, marine pollution, and biodiversity are not merely national issues but are global issues now and hence must be tackled with international efforts and cooperations. Another reason is problems cropped in the wake of development. Its wake given birth to urbanization. Development caused development of urbanization, industrial growth, transportation system, agriculture and housing. However, it has become phased out in the developed world. The North, to clean their own environment, has factfully managed to move dirty factories to the South. When the West developed, it did so perhaps in ignorance of the environmental impact of its activity. Evidently, such a path is neither practicable nor describable, even if developing world follows that. Another reason is excessively increase in pollution. World census reflects that one in every seven person in this planted lives in India. Evidently, with 60% of the world's population and only 2.4% of its land area, there is a heavy pressure on natural resources, including land. Agriculture experts have recognized soil health problems like deficiency of micronutrients and organic matter, soil salinity, and damage of soil structure. Another reason is a need for an alternative solution. It is essential, specifically for developing countries, to find alternative path to an alternative goal. We need a goal as which ultimately is the true goal of development, an environmentally sound and sustainable development, a goal common to all citizens of our earth, a goal distant from the developing world in a manner it is from the over-consuming wasteful societies of developed world. Another reason is need to save humanity from extinction. It is incumbent upon us to save the humanity from extinction, consequent to our activities constricting the environment and depleting the biosphere in the name of development. Another one is a need for wise planning of development. Our survival and sustenance develop, resource withdrawal, processing and use of product have all to be synchronized with the ecological cycle in any plan of development. Our action should be planned ecologically for the sustenance of environment and development. Mishra's report says that holism, ecosystem succession and conservation have been considered as a real base of ecology. In hierarchical level at which interacting units of ecology are discussed as four basic requirements of environmental management as impact of human activities on environment, value system, plan and design for sustainable development, and environmental education. Need for public awareness is also important. It is essential to make the public aware of the forbidden consequences of environmental degradation. If it is not stopped and reform measures undertaken, this will result in an extinction of life. We are facing various environmental challenges. It is essential to get the country acquainted with these challenges so that their act may be eco-friendly. Some of these challenges are growing population. A population of over thousands of million is growing at 2.11% every year. Over 17 million peoples are added each year. It puts considerable pressure on its natural resources and reduces the gain of development. Hence, the greatest challenge before us is to limit the population growth. Although population control does automatically lead to development, yet the development leads to decrease in population growth rates. For this development of the woman is essential. Another challenge is poverty. India has often been described a rich land with poor people. The poverty and environmental degradations have nexus between them. The vast majority of our people are directly dependent on the nature resources of the country and for their basic needs of food, fuel, shelter and fodder. About 40% of our people are still below the poverty line. Environment degradations has adversely affected the poor who depend upon the resources of their immediate surrounding. Thus the challenge of poverty and the challenge environment degradations are two facets of the same challenge. The population growth is essential a function of poverty because to the very poor every child is an earner and helper and global concerns have little relevance for him. Another challenge is agriculture growth. The people must be acquainted with the method to sustain and increase agriculture growth with damaging the environment. High yielding varieties have caused soil salinity and damage to physical structure of soil. Another challenge is need to groundwater. It is essential of rationalizing the use of groundwater. Factors like community waste, industrial effluents, and chemical fertilizers and pesticides have polluted our surface water and affected quality of the groundwater. It is essential to restore the water quality of our river and other water bodies as lakes is an important challenge. We have to find suitable strategy for conservation of water, provision of safe drinking water and keeping water bodies clean which are difficult challenge. Another one is the development of forest. Forests are catchment for the rivers. With increasing demand of water, planned to harness the mighty river through large irrigation projects were made. Certainly these would submerge forests, displace local people, damage flora and fauna. As such, the dams on the river Narmada, Bhagirathi and elsewhere have become area of political and scientific debate. Forests in India have been shrinking for several centuries owing to pressures of agriculture and other uses. Vast areas that were once green stand today as wastelands. These areas are to be brought back under vegetative cover. The tribal communities inhabiting forests respect the trees and birds and animals that gives them sustenance. We must recognize the role of these people in restoring and conserving forests. The modern knowledge and skill of forest department should be integrated with the traditional knowledge and experience of the local communities. The strategies for the joint management of forests should be evolved as a well-planned way to restore our forest. Another challenge is the degradation of land. At present, out of the total 329 million hectare of land, only 266 million hectare possess any potential for production. Of this, 143 million hectare is agricultural land nearly and 85 suffers from varying degrees of soil degradation. Of the remaining 123 million hectare, 40 are completely unproductive. The remaining 83 million hectare is classified as forest land, of which over half is denuded to various degrees. Nearly 406 million heads of livestock have to be supported on 13 million hectares land, or less than 4% of the land classified as pasture land, most of which is overgrazed. Thus, our 226 million hectare, about 175 million hectares or 66% is degraded to varying degrees. Water and wind erosion causes further degradation of almost 150 million hectares. This degradation is to be avoided. Another challenge is reorientation of institutions. The people should be reused to orient institutions, attitudes and infrastructures to suit conditions and needs today. The challenge has to be brought in keeping in view India's traditions for resources use, managements and education, etc. Change should be brought in education, in attitudes, in administrative procedures and in institutions because it affects way people view technology, resources and development. Another challenge is reduction of genetic diversity. Proper measures to conserve genetic diversity need to be taken. At present, most wild genetic stock have been disappearing from nature. Wilding includes the Asiatic lions are facing problem of loss of genetic diversity. The protected areas network like sanctuaries, national parks, biosphere reserves are isolating population. So they are decreasing changes of one group breeding with another. Remedial steps are to be taken to check decreasing genetic diversities. Another challenge is evil consequences of urbanization. Nearly 27% Indian lives in urban areas. Urbanization and industrialization has given birth to a great number of environmental problems that need urgent attention. Over 30% of urban Indians live in slum. Out of India's 3,245 towns and cities, only 21 have partial or full sewage and treatment facilities. Hence, coping with rapid urbanization is a major challenge. Another challenge is air and water pollution. Majority of our industrial plants are using outdated and old technologies which are releasing their waste without treating. A great number of cities and industrial areas that have been identified as the worst in terms of air and water pollution. Acts are enforced in the country, but the implements is not so easy. The reason is their implementation needs great resources, technical expertise, political and social will. Again, the people are to be made aware of these rules. Their support is indispensable to implement these rules. Now, various types of environment we'll see. There are three types of environment which influence the personality of an individual as physical environment, social and cultural environment, and psychological environment. This may be explained as physical environment refers to geographical climate and weather or physical conditions where an individual's lives. The human races are greatly influenced by the climate. Some examples are in the cold countries, European countries, the people are of white color. Likewise, in Asian and African countries, that is in hot countries, peoples are of dark complexions. The physique of an individual depend on climatic conditions as individual tries to adjust with his physical environment. The human working efficiency also depend on the climatic conditions. Social environment is also important. It includes an individual's social, economic, and political conditions where he lives. The moral, cultural, and emotional forces influence the life and nature of individual behavior. Society may be classified into two categories as under. An open society is very conducive for the individual development. A closed society is not very conducive for the development. Psychological environment. In this, although physical and social environments are common to the individuals in a specific situation, yet every individual has his own psychological environment in which he lives. The term life space for explaining psychological environment is used. The psychological environment enables us to unfold the personality of an individual. Both the person and his goal form psychological environment. If a person is unable to overcome the barrier, he can either get frustrated or completed to change his goal for a new psychological environment. But adapting this mechanism, the individual is helped in his adjustment to the environment. Now we'll see the structure of environment. Environment is both physical and biological. It includes both living and non-living components. First we'll see physical environment. It is classified into three categories as solid, liquid, and gas. These represent the falling sphere, that is lithosphere for solid earth, hydrosphere for water component, and atmosphere for air. In this, the three basic of physical environments are termed as lithospheric environment, hydrospheric environment, and atmospheric environment. Scientists for understanding has classified them into smaller unit, different spatial scale: mountain environment, glacial environment, plateau environment, and coastal environment. Biological environment consists plant, that is flora, and animal as a fauna. Thus the biotic environment further is divided into floral environment and faunal environment. All the organisms work to form their social groups and organization at several levels. Thus the social environment is formed. In this social environment, the organisms work to derive matter from the physical environment for their sustenance and development. This process gives birth to economic environment. Man claimed to be most skilled and civilized of all the organisms. This is the reason why his social organization is most systematic. The three aspects of man, that is physical, social, and economic, functions in a biotic environment as the physical man is one of the organisms, populations, or biological community. He is in need of a basic element of a physical environment like habitat, that is space, air, water, and food. Besides, like other biological population, he releases waste into the ecosystem. The social man. Social man performs function, establishing a social institutions, forming social organizations, formulating laws, principles, policies, taking steps to safeguard his existence, interest, and social welfare. The economic man derives and utilizes resources from the physical and biotic environment with his skills and technologies. The economic functions make the man an environment or geomorphic process as he transports matters and energy from one component of the ecosystem to the other. There may be any situations happen. First is his exploitative functions may be in harmony with the natural environment. Such functions do not necessarily involve changes in the working of the ecosystem. Another situation is these functions may exceed the critical limit. Consequently, the equilibrium of the environment or ecosystem is disturbed and a great number of environment and ecological problems crop up. These are detrimental to man is beside the whole population of human species in a given ecosystem.